Oh, Nelly. What's up, good people? Mark Holmes here, and as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Oh, my goodness gracious. I am building a support wall down here for my footings on the house. See, when the house was originally built, it had a crawl space. At some point, they dug it out to make it a usable space. And at one point, it was a workshop. So the only thing is, after they put the porch up there and the water started to come off of the concrete, it started to, in the back wall over here, disintegrate the walls, erode the wall some. So putting this here is going to help support the walls to keep them from eroding and make the house last longer. And what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to build a workbench and storage rack off of this so that way I can get better organized and make this actually a usable space. I know it looks like a mess here, but sometimes in life is a mess and things get messy before you can straighten it out. So, speaking of messes, we got the Cowboys. And we've got Philly 500 and crew gloating about all the moves that they made. They're laughing at us because they signed Saquon Barkley, and they think, just like last year. You remember last year when the Eagles were like, basically we don't need to have a season because we've already won the Super Bowl. You remember that? Getting players is one thing. Getting them together to become a team is another. And you can see how the Eagles have gone through and they've brought in some players, and some of them didn't work this year. Kevin Byard, they traded for him. That didn't work at all. He's gone. But they had some that have worked out well for them. And I'm not going to dispute that. I mean, I would like to see the Cowboys try and get a couple of top-tier players. But I think I now understand what they're trying to do. So Philly 500, in his gloating, of course, sent me a link, and I don't know if this is real or not, but it wouldn't surprise me any. Derrick Henry allegedly said he was interested in going to the Cowboys, but the Cowboys never called him. Well, we know that Jerry Jones is not one to call people because, like last year, when it was getting close to the trade deadline, they said, we'll take calls and things and see if there's something that can help us. As they always say, the early bird gets the worm. You got to put in the work if you want to get something, but be that as it may. If they didn't at least call him and talk to him, it's kind of disappointing, but I think I understand, okay? And let me see if I can put it the way I think it is, okay? I think in their mind, they knew that Derrick Henry was going to be too expensive and that they looked at this and said, he's 30 years old. We don't want to take the resources it's going to take to bring him in because of the amount of money, and we feel like we can use the resources in better ways. That's the first part of this, because I think they look at this and they say, I want you to think about some of the players out there. For example, DeAndre Hopkins was interested in the Cowboys when he was still with the Arizona Cardinals. He was working out with Dez Bryant and stuff and basically saying, what's up, Cowboys? The Cowboys at that time would have had to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, and at that time, DeAndre Hopkins' salary was around $28 million. You're not giving up draft picks and paying that salary. When the Cowboys didn't do anything, DeAndre Hopkins got pissed off, and then we heard him talking about the quarterbacks that he would like to play with, and Dak Prescott was not one of them. Which is cool. That's fine. Now, Hopkins, I can't remember what he got to play with Tennessee. He ended up having a good season. He had 1,100 yards, and you can't complain about that. But here's where it's interesting. Let's take Odell Beckham Jr. Odell, who a lot of people wanted us to sign. You wanted us to sign him. Odell ended up getting $50 million deal, 3-year deal, $50 million. With $15 million a year. Basically, this is how it worked out, I think it was. Odell Beckham Jr., he had an okay season. 560 yards. Baltimore released him, creating dead money after paying him $15 million. The Cowboys, they traded a 5th-round pick to get Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks had about 100 yards more than Odell Beckham Jr. and cost a lot less. His cap number this year, I think, is $10 million. Last year, I think it was only like 5 or so, something like that. So if you look at this on the outside looking in and say, well, there you go. It's not bad. Another person that people kept saying we should go sign last year was Dalvin Cook. Because we remember how Dalvin Cook played with Minnesota. You know, he ran roughshod over us. But I think with the Jets, I think he only had like 300 yards and had like 3.1 yards a carry. Now, granted, he was on a bad team. But when you looked at how much money he was going to get, it was a good thing that the Cowboys didn't go for that guy. Von Miller, another guy who was interested in the Cowboys. He was hanging out with DeMarcus Ware. And basically, they were like, you know, Cowboys, pick up the phone, give me a call. And Von Miller, the first year, had 8 sacks, but he signed a boatload contract. I don't know, $70 million or something like that. And right now, they're hurting because of it. Last year, he had 3 tackles and 1 sack. And so now you look at that one and say, it's a good thing the Cowboys didn't pick up the phone and call him. So I think, and I'll be proven right or wrong at some point here, I think the Cowboys have been looking at this and saying, without going through and risking, because they're risk adverse. Okay, let's be clear here. They're risk averse. And they're looking at this also, too, from the standpoint of saying, we can get some extra picks by not playing in this game right now because of the compensatory picks, okay, which work on values of contracts that you sign. So when Dante Fowler signs a $15 million a year deal, if you don't sign a contract in kind, that might be a fourth round draft pick. It's not bad. And you start seeing some of these other ones, because think about this. Connor McGovern and Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz only signed a $7 million contract for 1 year to go to the Texans, but we got a 6th-round draft pick. Connor McGovern signed I don't know what he signed for his deal, but Connor McGovern signed a contract with the Jets? I can't remember who he signed it with. But he ended up being a 5th-round draft pick. And so from that standpoint, the Cowboys are looking at it and saying, is it worth the risk of spending that much money for one guy when we can go through and we can get a couple of guys? In essence, they're looking at it and saying, how can we spread this money out to bring in as many people that can play well for us than just saying one guy? And let's be clear here. You know, maybe Dalvin Cook would have gave us a better deal than the $10 million he signed for, but that's still an awful lot of money for the running back. I think they'd be better suited drafting a young guy and taking care of their offensive line. But there you have it. We'll find out if that was true or not. Whew. But at least I got my retaining wall up. Got to do some digging in here, and then I can frame up the workbench. That's going to be a game changer down here, because then I can come down here and have some tools and stuff like a little workshop and get my tools organized and things. Oh, Nelly. Whew. Never enough hours in the day, y'all. Never enough hours. Peace.